Thank you. Welcome to another episode of We Are United for a Healthy Stoughton. My name is Stephanie Patton, and I'm the Prevention Coordinator for the OASIS Coalition. And I'm here today with the Norfolk District Attorney, Michael Morrissey. So thank you so much for coming to join us today, DA Morrissey, here in the studio.
It's great to be in Stoughton. I like the colors, as you know, orange and black are my favorite colors. So.
Yep. And you're dressed appropriately today with your wonderful
orange
tie.
Kind of blue, but maybe it looks black on TV.
Right,
so
right. Maybe we can adjust that for you.
Okay.
So we were hoping today, our focus is talking about keeping communities safe here in the county. And so I'd love to just sort of start with, your office does a lot of focus on prevention work. And if you could share with us, why that work is important to you. And
we see between 25 and 30,000 criminal cases a year in the 5 district courts, 1 superior court. But when I took office, and I think it would have been evident to anybody who was there, is that we live in a very safe community. I'm not telling you that we're not without our violent crimes. We had an incident a short time ago in Stoughton, but homicides are very, very unique. And especially, they used to have a lot more when Walpole had the really bad people, but they've now moved them to Sousa Baranowski, so that the prison system used to be good for 3 or 4 murders a year. So last year we had 2. I hate to jinx myself. This year we had 2. We have gone years without any, and we've hit 5 or 6 in a year. So homicides are not a big problem in Norfolk County. They tend to be people who know each other, relationships, family matters, drug deals with it gone awry. So people who know each other, not random acts of violence. That's very, very rare. The other thing that we see killing people in the county, there are 2 big things that come to mind right away. We're losing 3 people a week in opiate overdoses in spite of the good work of the Community Coalition, OASIS, and 20 other ones throughout the county. As you know, when you're one of, I say, more mature, older community coalitions, and you have mentored a couple of the newer ones, because we believe in prevention to get the word out. We think that's the way to go. But the heroin epidemic has still continued to climb. Over the last 3 years, it went from 1 death a week to 2 deaths a week to 3 deaths a week, and I don't think it's subsiding right now either. And that's in spite of all the good work with Narcan and the education we're doing, which does get a little discouraging, I have to say, but I still think it's the way to go. And finally, we lose a person a week on the roads of Norfolk County. And if you think about some of the major highways, you have the old Southeast Expressway, you have 93 or 95, you have 24, you have 495, you have Route 1, 109, even in Stoughton you have 139, 123, and if you add up the Blue Hills and the Parkway, Quincy Shore Drive, and it keeps going, Route 3 to the Cape, you have higher speed accidents, I think, and a higher percentage of those people that are involved in those cases tend to be substance abuse involved, drugs and alcohol. So we do have 6 to 8 lawyers at a time that work in a motor vehicle homicide team, and I'm not even talking about the serious bodily injury cases. I mean, I couldn't even keep track of those. But the fact that someone is dead in an accident, 1 a week is the average that we're seeing. So it's a lot of it points to the biggest problem in Norfolk County points to drugs and alcohol. So that's why I think people look at the courts. I'd say 25, 30,000 cases a year. And some of them are frequent flyers.
Right.
We don't want to, I don't want to see them as much as they probably don't want to be back there. But if you're not dealing with, in many cases, the underlying problem, then they get into problems. And those problems, if you think of people with substance abuse or addiction disease issues, then what are they doing? They're breaking into houses, they're breaking into cars, they're robbing banks, they're assaulting people. So a large percentage of our crimes, I think, have as an underlying problem, drugs and alcohol. I think if you were asked the sheriff, he's the largest detox in Norfolk County, it's the House of Correction.
Right.
And he's putting more and more emphasis on reentry programs, trying to make sure that he doesn't see them back either, and his population trying to get it down. So I think the prevention activities that we do is probably the most important thing, because it helps us on the other end.
Right. Yep. So I know one of the big strategies that your office has been very involved with has been really helping to build coalitions, and you bring groups together. And so can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, your coalition is made up of, you're one of the better ones, so let's start with that. You've been around longer, you have more experience. You, Weymouth, Needham, come to mind, Walpole. There's some hardcore. Avon has been around for a while. So the newer people, I think, can learn a lot from you. The mistakes that you made early on, hopefully that, bring them up to speed quicker. But I honestly believe in getting a broad range of people in the community. Who are, maybe when you started, you're 10 years old now, right?
Yeah, we're more than 10 years old.
So 10 years ago, who would talk about heroin addiction disease? I mean, it was out there, you knew it.
Right.
But it wasn't really into the community. So I know you have people from the schools, people from the police, you have pharmacists, you have business leaders, you have interested parents, you have professional educators and substance abuse counselors. So you have a lot of different people who make up your coalition, which feeds the greater network of really what's going on. And I think now it increases the level of dialogue. You and I doing the show today obviously is another attempt to do that. And you're just talking about, you had a program, we talked about how young is too young for education. You said you had a great second graders program for, not really about drugs, but just about medicine. Don't take anybody's medicine. So all those things I think are important if we educate people at a young age and we educate parents and grandparents, and I think that they all can contribute in one way or another. To think of one of our biggest successes, you guys jumped on early. We put a drug take-back container in the Stoughton Police Department, and the complaint we get is, God, I got to empty that thing, once or twice a week, and so the biggest complaint was too much. So obviously word's getting out, and that's the easiest thing we've ever done to take drugs off the street, because young kids, 60-70% of young children, get their drugs out of your and my medicine cabinet.
Right. Yep, and that was a great initiative. So for folks who don't know, I always love to remind people that there is this drug kiosk in the police department. It looks like a mailbox. You don't have to speak to anybody. If you have excess medication in your house, stuff that's expired, open the thing, throw it in.
Throw the container away, rip the label off, put them in a plastic bag. No questions asked, drop them in.
Yep, and it all gets incinerated safely. And
Covanta. I used to chair the Energy Committee in the legislature, and they have a national program, and they volunteer to take those drugs and dispose of them for free.
Which is excellent. So that's such a great
that was
opportunity
simple
for our community,
but we're also, we do a lot of work, with drunk drivers, for instance, obviously a lot of work with kids. I know that even Nancy Reagan just passed away, and just Say No has been around, 25 years or longer, and it's still Just Say No. And it's really a little bit more complicated than that, because I think the choices that kids are faced with these days are more complicated than they were 25 or 30 or 40, 50 years ago. And even when I was younger, there's a lot more things going on. So I think that makes it harder for young people. But having to make good decisions and doing the right thing is the goal. And we spend a lot of time on peer leaders. I get to see kids who are in trouble. And I always tell people, and I told my kids even growing up, and I'm sure your parents told you, small problems we can deal with, big problems have big consequences.
Right.
And if you see someone doing something wrong, speak up, and that can be contagious, doing the right thing. So, there's a lot of good kids who sometimes don't get the attention and the notice that I think is worthwhile, which is why we run the peer leadership programs. That's why we have the Team Rival program, where we have school districts, teams of 10 kids from school districts across the county that are doing messaging, dealing with good decision-making, drugs and alcohol.
Right.
So I think that's the future. I think, when you look at the repeat offenders, if we don't get them the help they need, then I'm just going to continue to see them. And who does that serve? It doesn't serve anybody well. Except the sheriff. It increases the population, but even he gets tired of seeing the same people.
Right. So actually that, what you were talking about kids and making good decisions, is a good segue, because I know we've done some work together around positive community norms. And in fact, the district attorney's office helped us when we were putting on a conference a couple of years ago to bring folks in. It was awesome.
It was over in Dedham at the Endicott House.
Yes, it was awesome. We brought in Dr. Linkenbach, and
national expert on the program.
Yeah, and then you and I had the opportunity to go on Fox News and talk a little bit about underage drinking. They called, and I still remember this because I know we were never able to get a hold of the interview. I don't think we said what they wanted us to say.
No, I think people have the wrong view of. There is underage drinking going on, but it's not to the extent and nature as people think it is. But I also have to say, on the other hand, is that even those small amount of people who are underage who are drinking, who are driving, become a high risk for accident or injury to others. But I think there are a lot of kids out there who are making good decisions.
Right.
And I think that often gets lost on people, because you only read about the bad. No one reads about the kid who's not drinking. They only read about the person who was caught drinking.
Right.
So.
Right. And for me, I thought that was a particularly memorable moment for me, because I think what the news folks expect, because as you said, most of the people that you see are people who are in trouble. It's not the kids who are making good choices. They expected you to sort of say everybody's doing all this bad behavior, and for the district attorney to say, no, actually most people, most kids are making really good choices is terrific to hear.
And we went through that. Well, how do you know? And obviously the community norm testing you do, and that was one of the things that came out in the conferences. Well, how do you know that it's reliable? How do you know the kids are answering the question, when did you start drinking, or what kind of medication you're taking, or go through all those different questions you asked about drug and alcohol use at various ages, and this. How do you know it's accurate? Well, there are two ways really. They have the national average, which they can compare it against, and I think the questions are tried and true and have been prepared by experts who can tell when people are generally lying or when the results may go askew. So you have to believe that the results that you and I saw are pretty accurate.
Right. I agree with you, and it's the best information that we have. So we have to rely on that.
But you also have to continue that testing so you can build your model on data. You've done this a couple times now.
Right. Oh, probably 6 times, I think, over the last 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So you get to see some of the trends.
Yep. And
you see some of the ups and downs. I'm sure you've seen increases in some areas and decreases in others, but which allows you to focus on the problem areas.
Right. Exactly.
Which is why we think it's important that you do that work.
Exactly. Right.
Because we steal your ideas too. We figure that what happens in Stoughton is probably happening, in Avon and in Quincy and other areas as well.
Right. And we want to share that work, of course, across the county, which is excellent.
Well, that's one of the things, as you know, we do. We take the community coalitions now, which number above 20, and there's 28 communities. So we're still, if you don't have one, contact us in your own community. I can't tell you who doesn't have one, but it's really generally the smaller communities. I don't know if Dover has one yet, but they have problems too. They're just not to the extent that they do in Quincy or Weymouth or other areas of the county as well. I mean, the bigger the population and depending on socioeconomic and other issues, proximity to Boston, Brockton, all have factors in, I think, some of the issues that we face in our own communities. But getting that word out and working with people and working with the community coalitions, that meeting once a month, we exchange good ideas, we bring in speakers, we identify problems, we offer help, and people offer suggestions on, no, I did this and you should try this.
Right, which is, those meetings are invaluable for those of us in the field. Yeah,
and especially for some of the newer people who are starting coalitions, to think of all the work you've done over more than 10 years here in Stoughton, that you can tell them, no, don't do that. I tried that. That wasn't good. That was an awesome idea. Now, I like Walpole, for instance, has I go every year, and they have I had to remind them I don't want to be a judge because I told them it's not an election yet, but I'm not a judge. But they have kids in the lower grades, the middle school, and the high school who all put together either posters or video productions on good decision making. Could be anti-smoking, anti-drinking, anti-drug. But we take some of those public service announcements, we put them up on the website, and we try to get them out to the county because they're pretty funny, actually.
Yeah.
But it's young kids talking to young people. They don't want to hear from me or you all the time. They want to hear from their own peers.
Right.
And which is why we're now focusing on peer leaders, doing the right thing, be contagious, speak up.
Right.
So reward those kids who often get left behind because they're not in trouble. So my father used to say, he was a teacher for many years, and he said, the kids, he said, if they're a really bad kid, I always knew the bad kids. And if they were really a good kid, he said, I always knew the good kids. It's the average kid you had to work at getting to know. And those are the people we have to meet. And the good kids can help us.
Right, absolutely. So I want to talk about another program that I feel like the district attorney's office was super supportive of and also helped to spread, and that was the Narcan work that was happening here in Stoughton. So do you want to talk a little about that?
Well, I would have liked to arrest Chief Shastany at the time, but as Quincy had such great success, and obviously I'm a Quincy resident, it didn't take anybody long to figure after the first year that the number of people that were being saved by the Quincy police does not solve the drug problem.
Right.
All it does is keep people alive to hope we can get them the help and support they need. And that's one of the fights that we continue to have even today, is getting information to the hospital, getting them to a hospital, getting them to a treatment facility. I mean, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And so trying to get that information and trying to get them help is still the constant battle we face. But Narcan keeps them alive. If we didn't have Narcan, the 3 people a week would probably be 9 people a week, and the numbers would go through the roof. I know Paul Shastny and the police department, the coalition here, recognized it, and fire department has had it for years. And you know, my friends in the public safety community, they always laugh who's the first one there. These days it doesn't matter.
Right.
First one there has Narcan.
Right.
Police or fire.
Right.
And and I think that working hand in hand, the community here, the police and fire community do work hand in hand. And when he had a chance to, you know, I know that Chief Shastany went out and had the members of the department outside of the public health, and we went through all sorts of barriers. When they wouldn't give us Narcan, they wouldn't let us do it. We couldn't participate in the program, and basically we said, so what? And so what were they going to do to us?
Right.
And so I used to joke with the chief, as much as I like to lock you up, I said, don't look at me, I'm not locking you up.
Right.
So, and I said, in one respect, I said, I hope they do, because it will shine a light on what we thought was a problem, getting Narcan out in the community sooner, because we recognized that that it was working so well to keep people alive. But it didn't solve our problem, it just kept them alive. So the training that you guys did here in Stoughton, and the work that Quincy did, then allowed us to say, well, if Stoughton did it on their own, then why don't we offer everybody in the community an opportunity to come and get trained. Dr. Muse heads up the Brockton Emergency Room Services, became the medical advisor to us, and Dave Morgan, a pharmacist. Probably the only DA in the country has a pharmacist on staff.
Right.
And
Which is amazing.
The Stoughton Police, Donna, I think, your chief,
Yep.
was one of the chief trainers.
She was, yeah.
And so the good news was that we got everybody together at the Blue Hills Country Club, thanks to my friends in Canton, and they were able to put the arm on the country club, and we had a giant training, and we had police from I think we even invited the MBTA, and so we had some state troopers and others, you know, come in, and everybody learned how to use Narcan in you know, about a 3-hour, 4-hour session. I mean, I think arguably you can learn to use it in about 5 minutes, but in order to meet all the requirements, I guess it was probably 2 hours we had.
I think so.
And the state was mandating 1 hour of training, and it wasn't too long. It was relatively simple, but we went through the chemistry and explained people what they had and the risks, so a little bit more complicated.
Right, departmental procedures,
exactly,
and all of the pieces they need to think
but
about.
But now the training is down to, you know, essentially 5 minutes.
Right, right.
Learn to cope. If anyone goes to Learn to Cope meeting, that they will train people the first part of every meeting.
And then all the other DAs sort of copied your idea and ran with it and took it across the state, right?
It's well, I know Marion did it, and David Sullivan, and the drug take back, they all do it now. But the bottom line is, I'm not averse. You've had some good ideas that I've stolen from Stoughton, so
right.
I mean,
and we're happy to share them.
Exactly. And people in this business, I think, are all for that. Is that you have to, if you have a good idea, tell people about it.
Right. That's right. Yeah, and I think that's sort of the motto of all of our work. It's just collaborate. Why should somebody have to reinvent something?
Right. Exactly. No pride of authorship. Just give it out.
Right.
You know, put your own label on it. Do whatever you want.
Exactly. If it helps people, we want to get it out there.
Right.
It doesn't make sense for somebody to have to do that
right.
again. And then we were all privileged to be able to present nationally, so we all got to go to Atlanta last year.
Yeah, the success that we had getting everybody else, and we basically did I think it was a 45-minute or an hour presentation at the National Prescription Drug Conference, which starts next week, which I understand one person is coming, you know, representing Stoughton.
Yep.
And we have a few people in the DA's office. The numbers are down. I think one of the things that we're finding is there's a lot of good work going on, but the work that we do here in Norfolk County is really at the front end of the cutting edge of what's going on in the country.
Absolutely. Right.
And Michael Botticelli, the drug czar at the White House, is a Massachusetts resident. He gets it. And so I think we're doing a lot of the right things, and people are starting to copy what we did.
Right. Exactly. So we should be back there presenting next year.
Well, you never know. We have a couple. Right? Well, we have a couple of ideas on that as well. So.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of great work happening. So some of the other projects that you've helped us with over the years, I've been trying to think about, because you've been so supportive to our coalition. Recently, you paid for a tips training for our
alcohol is still a problem,
vendors.
You know, and so we think having people work in the. I'm not against having people having fun. So I think, and bars and restaurants have to make a living.
Right.
But responsible serving is, you know, some of those services can be critical to us saving lives. If you're losing one life a week in a car accident and a high percentage of drug and alcohol, then the front line of that war on alcohol, in many cases, can be the server.
Right.
And so if you see someone, you know, overserved, obviously get them a ride home, maybe get the keys, recognizing those problems, do the right thing. So we're not saying don't drink. You know, we're not saying that. We're saying
for adults.
If you're under 21, don't drink.
Right.
You know, but But get older and and before you make those decisions, get a little bit older. And not only that, drug and alcohol use at a younger age, and we know from all the studies, and this is true of what's happening now with marijuana. The younger someone starts, then the higher as they get older, it can affect brain development and brain functioning, both drug and alcohol use. And as you get older, they say the brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25 years of age. That's the whole issue you see about trying juveniles as adults.
Right.
But drug and alcohol use can affect brain development. I believe all those studies. I think scientifically that they're well proven. So having kids get older before they make those decisions is a critical component.
Right.
So it's not just don't do it. It's just you shouldn't do it at a young age, and it's against the law.
Right. Right. And we really like those programs as well here in Stoughton, because I feel like it sends a message to our whole community about we take these kinds of issues seriously. It's important to us to keep people safe, for people to make responsible decisions, and for adults to be modeling what responsible looks like, so when kids are 21 and they're old enough that they know what that means.
Someone who has an alcohol issue, a minor drinking, they're not going to jail. Generally, if they're a repeat offender, it may be different how we treat them, but I don't know that anyone's ever going to get a criminal record out of, you get caught down the field drinking. More apt to get suspended from the school team, which they're harsher than I can be, suspended from school. But if it's police involvement, that arguably you'll end up in a diversion program, going to a program about making good decisions and probably doing some public service, and maybe paying some court costs. So it is, made a bad decision, so you got to pay for it.
Right.
But the price of payment is not a criminal record. For a young person, that's the worst thing you can do for them.
Right. Right. That doesn't really help them in the long term.
No, it does not. You don't want to affect them getting into the military, into school. But you want to send a message that it's unacceptable behavior.
Absolutely, and to be able to help kids to.
Well, I was a kid too
make another
once,
choice, right?
So,
yeah.
And I was in college, and the drinking age became 18, and then shortly after I got out of college, I became a member of the legislature, and had to raise the drinking age to 21. Of course, my brothers and sisters never forgave me, but it seemed to be the thing to do because we kind of ruined it. We didn't handle that responsibility well at the time.
Right, and now we have all this brain research to back up why that age actually makes sense.
Sure.
But which I think we didn't really know at the time. We knew it affected the drinking and driving rates.
Sure. Now we've done work too. You have a pharmacist on your own coalition, and we visited every single pharmacy in Stoughton.
That's right.
And talked about warning signs, people paying in cash or people drug-seeking patients and things. How to call a doctor when there's an overdose death in town. The Stoughton Police and the State Police work together. We treat it as a crime scene, gather information, and we've seen trends out of that. Like, for instance, someone we know from 0 to 90 days who's got out of rehab is very susceptible to an overdose.
Right.
And they go back taking what they used to. And sometimes, when you have your first child, people will, that may listen know about that. Your first child, you go at night and you make sure their back is moving, they're breathing, and then get the second one. Who cares? You know what I mean? The first one, you get a little concerned. They're not breakable, and they tend to survive. But when you have someone who's going through that, and you have loved ones who are kind of doting over them, making sure, and we often hear from parents, well, I checked on Johnny at 11:30 when I went to bed, and he was in bed and he was snoring. And that snoring is that is Dr. Muse refers to it as the death rattle. It's the beginning of the end of an overdose. So we've got to get people to recognize that. We see a drug called gabapentin, which is for neuropathy and seizure disorder. And that's a high percentage of people taking gabapentin, also taking involved with heroin, and I think it gives them a little bit of a boost and a head start on it. So we're trying to alert pharmacists and doctors to that trend. So there's some things that we see out there that we try to pass on.
Right, which is really great, and it's a huge help to our communities to be able to do that work together for our police departments, for our EMTs and folks around the front lines.
And then with the help of the police department, we're the only county in the Commonwealth that has a veterans court, a drug court, a mental health court, because those are significant problems facing society every day, whose solutions to those problems aren't necessarily locking someone up.
Right.
We cannot arrest our way out of this problem. We got to get people help.
Right. Which is
those courts focus on those problems.
Yep. And it's another reason why we like that coalition model, because you're right, we can't arrest our way out of these problems. We can't sort of teach our way out of these things in the school. None of us can do this work by ourselves. We can all help.
Absolutely. If everybody starts rowing in the right direction,
that's right.
Eventually we start moving forward.
Right, which is really what the coalition is intended for, is exactly that. It's to kind of help everybody be moving together.
Push in the right direction,
yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And sometimes we don't move all at the same time. It's a little bit awkward, but eventually eventually I think it will catch on.
Yep.
So
I agree. Yeah.
I mean,
So
the Stoughton Coalition really is one of my favorite, and they do a lot of great stuff.
which we appreciate.
And we try to fund some of the activities, help you with even with the grant and stuff. I say tongue in cheek that some of the money the Stoughton Police and the state police get in drug seizures, we put back into education.
Right.
So hit them where it hurts, and then help us where we can help other people.
Absolutely. So we have a few minutes left. I would love to spend a minute talking about another really fun program that your office did recently here in Stoughton, which was the basketball camp over February vacation.
Well, we had a star there this year,
which was great.
I know if Jeffrey can put any clips in on this one.
I know we should have warned him ahead of time, but
but the good news is that one of the statewide office holders now, the governor and the Attorney General, Morrissey, both have recognized as they took office that opiate was a problem. We've known it longer than they did, but they got it, and they've made it a priority. So we were fortunate this time to invite, you used to have the tallest chief in the county, and Warren retired next door in Avon, and they say Chief Shaston is the tallest chief, but I told the kids, Maura Healy played basketball at Harvard. She was captain of the basketball team and played in Europe for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And she came down and talked to the kids really about, teammates, helping each other out, making good decisions. It was awesome. But not only that, she can really handle the ball.
Yeah.
And she can still shoot. And I think Paul Wilder, who helps organize the camps, I don't know if you saw or if you were there at the time, I saw the clip, and I said, can you still balance the ball on your finger?
Wow.
And she took the ball, and it was going around her finger, and she kept talking to the kids.
Wow.
And so you could see all the kids, the eyes wide open. So I said, well, this is our first, pro basketball player we've had come to the camp.
And I know there is a SMAC show, I believe, about that.
Yes.
Because I know some of the kids actually they interviewed you,
yes,
right?
Yeah,
And they interviewed
really
the
good,
Attorney General.
Yeah.
It was really great.
And we've sent that show across the county. So
Yep.
still another good idea from Stoughton.
Right.
So it worked well.
Great. So do you have any last thoughts in our last 20 seconds here? Or?
Kids and grandparents. I mean, everybody, no matter how old you are, you can play a role. Grandparents, watch your medication. Help the kids out. To send the right message about good decision making. And parents, stay involved. And and it's hard. I mean, fortunately, my son is now 28. My daughter is 31, I think. I get at the right age. So it's tough. I'm very fortunate, but I worry about grandkids. So we should too. Worry about all the kids, and we'll have a better society.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and thanks for coming to Stoughton.
Great to be here.
Great. All right. Thank you so much.